Good afternoon. This is May 1st. It's a great day. Yesterday, I have videotaped the little background about the Gem Explorer. That is something I have always wanted to do. In part is my gratitude about all this 50 years from the gemstones, minerals, business, along with my educational counseling program. This particular my attitude about being thankful to Brazil is how I started yesterday, was going to go on a continuing 50 tapes, the history about the garimpeiros, meaning the gem miners. They are one of the most diverse, interesting, complicated, complex, how the gem industry have never given due credit for this many people that involving in the industry, using their intuition, using their very much of a spontaneity, and yet somehow in the economic level they were just one level above poverty. So that Gem Explorer story, as I have promised myself, I will continue in the future, storytelling, also a little bit of my 48 coming to 50th years of our business here in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, US, with a store named China West. So I will go through some of the story here. And I'm starting first with this artificial intelligence, which we know about AI, but I added the WI because from a Chinese point of view, we talk about man producing work with wisdom. And we can use both. Intelligence, for me, in my counseling, ecological cycle, recycling, intelligence is being screened by conscience and then into the sphere of wisdom. With all these round spheres, you will also see it as part of my expression, a part of how my cross-cultural life, going in from speaking Chinese to Portuguese to Spanish, enhanced by the Latin and Greek training by the Roman Catholic Order of the Salesians in Macau and eventually in Brazil. And yes, I'm part of the team. I'm grateful to the Jesuits because I was baptized by the Jesuits. It's never about religion, and I will get to that eventually, how this cross-cultural life, linguistically and culturally, and we have earned a lot from Brazil. So, but at the moment, at 2025, we're coming into an era with the AI development. We're coming to a brand new era of the digital period in history. And because the AI, because the WI is going to changing the entire recent past of the business development, and likewise in our industry, which I call the colored gemstones, the diamond, and the minerals. The data you will see here in later on the screen, you will show an estimated about 6 years ago, before COVID, the global market in the colored gemstones and jewelry and diamond was estimated at about 4,375,000,000 in that margin. And 6 years later, I have not did my survey. Again, this can be produced not by me, but by many of us. I think we are in the area between the 600 billion, but this is only limited to the gemstones, the jewelry, not including the wider area of the minerals, that can be also expanded when we talk about antiquity, when we talk about jewelry that was being made in a different era, the Deco Nouveau, the time of Cartier, and any other classical jewelry also being used or traded in the auction houses. But with the system of the Gemmfiles, I will walk you through, all of this can be coming into our territory as well. China West has started 1977 here in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, in the US. And once again, the Gem Explorer, I'm going into back to this, is my tribute to the Brazilian miners. And maybe in this part, as both as a psychologist and also in cultural anthropologist, I felt that there is the mixing, there is the lingering of the practice of psychology in business and then the cultural anthropology, this side of me urging me to tell more stories, maybe by sharing stories in the first phase. The second phase, I will have other story and inputs, books, videos that are everywhere. And so this is the Gem Explorer. And one more time, we have to know, I have to know where my cultural sphere, where I'm in. And so is our business. This is the digital era. By me putting the IT and AI is since the idea, the concept of the gem file develops in 1991. There's also that year I make a very firm statement. The way we do business in the past is over. And that was the 1991, the year we started the internet, and also by adapting to using the spreadsheets and Microsoft Word. And the spreadsheet by me is the very first data. So what you are seeing and sharing with me, by any means, this is a 50 years almost a demarcation. How we starting with a mine power business with less than $3,500 borrowed and installing our physical premise of a store 700 square feet, no bigger than that. And from that point onward until 1991, and before 1991, we used telex, we used facsimile. So to a degree, maybe in the use of my sharing of how we're starting our business also shows a little bit of the history of the mine power and then the global business. We've gone directly from retail back to wholesale and then mining. And this is reversal, is where the industry, like most of us at that time starting telex machine, because I had to talk to Brazil, I talked to China, Thailand, and different regions. And then the fax machine first came, it was become very exciting. But never forget, today the fax machine will cost me $120. When starting with the fax machine in the US, it was costing about $1,200. And my 3 machines I installed in Brazil was at $3,000. So from telex to fax machine, also the electric typewriter with IBM is all part of the aggregate of technology and how that have moved forward. I will show that in more detail in another segment. But looking in what I'm doing is a little bit about history, a little bit about the business and how the business evolving from the information technology. I started with telex, fax machines, and then the internet and the computer. So that is the era of the entry of the information technology. And then now we have recently coming into AI. And also another sphere, that's the only way I can cover it, is the spatial web. And I will repeat again, what makes the difference between now, the AI era, and the IT? Very simple. What happens with the speed of the quantum algorithm in past years, up until the time of era, we all driving as a driver, we have two blind spots. In our Chicago, California highways, 4-lane, 8-lane total, we can often not correct. We pass from the right, we pass from the left. And that becomes always a little bit of a trouble when you're not being able to see or gauge the speed car coming from the right lane behind you or the car from the left side behind you. So when you make the turn, it's always a little bit tricky, a little bit dangerous. And I use that how AI with my daily use with DeepSeek. About 4 weeks ago, we're starting to use it, subscribe to it. And also on a daily basis, academically, I've just written 2 books in the use of supporting of Claude, which is Anthropic. So now we're emerging all into this era of the ITAI. I like to label ITAI because, as you can see, we are still in the gemstone business, and the name ITA is very frequently used in our Brazil growing up. Ita in Tupi Guarani, in the Tupi language of the native tongue, meaning stones. So I just borrow Itai to make it simpler for me to follow my flow of the cultural sphere now. The new era, the ITI, and then spatial web, and then I also happened in this last month change that to ITAISWB. Sounds more logical. Itai's web. This is the web coming in with a spatial in between. This color, a kind of a beige, grayish, the Gemmfile had started about 10 years ago. In fact, we were trying to launch this before the COVID. But there are good reasons. Sometimes, I credit about being intuitive, being spontaneous, that when I started the Gemmfiles, it was in 1991. And the same year, I told myself, to my team, we have 7 people here, we have another 7 people in Brazil. I said, our system of gem trade is finished. That's how Gemmfiles started in 1991, at least the concept. Will it be successful? Will it be becoming a reality in the coming year or 2? And that's very possible. This is an older image of the Gemmfiles. But I want you to understand what we have conceived, the platforms in each one of the spheres. And I'm today opening totally to the public, including potential investors, partners, be that in Hong Kong, in China, can that be Tencent, can that be Alibaba, or just basic Hong Kong trade and their networks around the world, because at this time and moment, Hong Kong is in need of international groups, foreign groups that can take many business going public in Hong Kong. And these are the basic platforms we have all conceived, lined up more than 15 years ago. The first platform you will see in the orange is called the Gem Board. The Gem Board is going to be a total open exchange of the handling of the transactions of the board. You can command it by any of the color you see. One way you can start typing in your search is by the color pigment, from starting, like say, from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Or you can just type in by the word of the gemstones or the minerals. But the gem board is going to allow anyone from anywhere can upload their image. But the image is the gem file. You have to give the complete information. If you're ruby, yes, you're red. Would that be you have a secondary color? You might have a color hue of pink, but all the language you can be demanding coming up for your gemological lab by the examination of the stone, and the secondary color, the hue will show up. But in the gem board here, you'll be more successful if you can give more evidence by your products talking about the audience. But within the trade, the gem file is not going to be standing by any of the classification of the buyer seller. The members are the traders. So if you know your party, they will accept your stone in trading without the certificate. Is entirely up to the two of you. But in the system per se, when stones are questions and doubt, I will encourage everyone to use a stone that you are ready to buy and purchase just to be substantiated by a gemological lab. That is where you have the stone, the measurement of the stone, the length, the width, the depth, and also becoming easier with all the equipment that's available to talk about facet count of stone, on the brilliance, the shine, all the language at the demand of the buyer can be provided by the seller. So the gem board, you can just coming in, put in your stone with the picture, with the definition, with the location. You can starting, I use Brazil, the stone coming from that particular mine, the region of mine. Let's talk about emerald coming from Santa Terezinha, or coming in from Bahia, or the emerald I used to trade coming from Nova Era in Minas Gerais. You can indicate where the stone coming from, origin. You can even provide the cutter of the stone, because this is all coming to become in the prominence, in the promenade of the stone, not to decorate, not to make it better, but the more awareness you can provide, the more more credit to you when you can providing the richer information to the audience and to your future buyers. So the gem file, the gem board, very quickly in a quantum algorithm, you can say, I want a red ruby, 6 carat, 3 carat, 2 carats. You will fluctuate and let you know. And then you can also asking by the size that you care. Simultaneously, when you're putting your gemstones on the gem board from anywhere, then you will have, beforehand, you can do a gemdex. It's a gemstone index to find out where we at. Today, May 1st, or in the last 7 days, was the biggest ruby ever put in the board for trade. The gemdex is the economic influx for your procurement. The stone could be bought, sold. The buyer can have the right to remove the stones, not in the public board, or in that case, a gemdex. But for those who want to play intelligently, you can play it very, very openly, very comprehensively. You may see a stone leaving from Peshawar in Pakistan, maybe at $1,000, let's say a tourmaline or red rubellite. By the time you get to Bangkok, the same stone, we have all the data are the same. You will see that change maybe go up 10%, 20%, 30%. And the same stone become into Hong Kong or into New York or into Los Angeles or into Frankfurt. The stone price changing vary will be constantly indexed. And that's the gem board and the gemdex. That's how we structure it. So the gemdex, you can search, for example, insurance replacement, the quotation of a stone, the color, the clarity, the cut, all these features that's affecting the price of a gemstone, many of the industry can use a GemDAX or visit the gem board. But the GemDAX may be something that's already moving from one zone to another. And that's my whole idea about the gem board and GemDAX. And this is what the gem file is: the individual stones. And by the color search, because the era that we're the digital era we are in, we will have all this machinery that are available to become even more comprehensive. You can look at an opal, the eye level. You will not know what percentage point, but by the new scanner, we can look at one opal coming from Australia, have the dominant hull, say 70% is blue, white, and then the secondary color, green, yellow. You have the entire rainbow hue in the case of opal. I'm just giving you that particular example, how the reading and the gem files and the documentation with the gem file, with the stone specifically, you will have those options open. As I said about yesterday, I'm sitting here in Wisconsin and I am trading stone on a daily basis because after 45 years, I have my team in Brazil, I have my team in South Africa, I have my team in Mozambique, Angola, and also in Thailand, in Peshawar, in Pakistan. A stone will show up to me even on Facebook, soliciting. You look at the stone, then you're asking for the detailed data. I have bought stones moving from Peshawar into Bangkok, and with my Thai associates, pay the seller. And then the stone eventually gone on to Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong into Shenzhen to my clients in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Tianjin, in Chengdu. And this is how the global gem trade is going to be operating in the same format. Or Brazilians and the Chinese, eventually, I can set up the system in the free zone in, say, between Macau and Zhuhai. In the Huangqing is the free zone. You may have your inventory going to the free zone, protected, secured, and not taxed until the transaction. And then you may remove the free zone from Shenzhen, from Germany, from Dubai, and from anywhere that's a free zone that can be your anchor of transactions. And all this have become very available now that we can make it happen. Because it's no longer you have to fly to a certain area. For my entire 48 years, starting at 3,500, gone to Brazil. In a week's time, coming back, another 10 days to operate, I can double my money from a 3,500 budget to purchasing to make between another 3,500, including clearing the $1,500 cost of travel, flying to São Paulo, take plane, or at the beginning take buses, 24 hours to 30 hours to cut from São Paulo to Minas Gerais to the two cities of Tefelotoni and Valadares. That's the reason when I wanted to start the Gem Explorer story by relating myself is another Gem Explorer, garimpeiros, outside, not digging on the ground, although I have shared joint ventures. We have shared many of the developments in Brazil, which will be in the storytelling side of the Gem Explorer in the coming weeks. But to explain this three basic spheres, the platforms of Gemboard, GemDAX, and the Gemmfiles, and this eventually will be becoming a particularly a business enclave by able to work this on into a gem card, gem bank, and gem coin. What is a gem bank? The gem bank, ideally, eventually, there will be one single banking unit with all the participants. Why? Because for the moment, in many countries, still are having a two rate of exchange. I'm just using dollar. There's a black market dollars in Brazil that can often be 3, 5, 10% higher exchange than the normal rate. Because if this team works out, and all this can be modified by the entire company group, or eventually the funding company going public, you can modify your change. But the gem bank, if we all have a credit card to do the exchange, the banking with a gem coin coming into, it's not that we're minting coins, but the gem coin itself can be a gold value, because we are now operating in Brazil not in color gemstones, but also with the native Brazilians, we can set up systems that are gold mining. I did not put it on the aggregate called Lao Corporation. LAU sounds Chinese, but it's LA, is Latin America, and then AU for Gold Corporation. So when we have enough ventures into gold, many of the partnership in the Gemmfiles, as in the case I put down GGMBA, which is already in full operation, 600 people, Global Gem and Mineral Business Alliance, they're already exchanging images and pictures and buy or sell at this moment, for the most part, with Brazilians. This GGMBA is already in existence on WhatsApp. And my purpose to starting the entire system that I thought of as early as in 1991, but still in bits and pieces and pigments. But today, I'm no longer looking this as a business that I'm going to be profit enormously. I'm 77 years of age. But what I felt sincerely is that how can this industry eventually will give us all the more credibility along with accountability? And don't get me wrong, there are other people in any business, they do not want to do any business under a system that people can see, track, retrack, they see the index, the influx. But I think this is the future. Ever since the day of the De Beers with diamonds, Rhodesia, with gold in Africa, and today, what is the future of diamond is very much unknown, because now you have the natural diamonds and you have the man-made diamonds. In all these years, in seeing how Chinese making purchases of the industrial diamonds for polishing to all the industry, I am not shocked at all to see China is being produced man-made diamond. And you'll be up to the market to decide what they like, what they dislike. You will find some group to discredit the man-made products, and other ones will not. In fact, when I first started with my business and launching, I was one of the earliest Chinese coming from Brazil, showing gemstones, the first gem show in the entire Hong Kong history. I believe there was 1983, 84, called at the hotel that I reside for 10 years, Sheraton on Nathan Road, facing the harbor. And that in that particular time and moment, there are many questions about the value. Nobody in Hong Kong really have any notions about the color stones, not even tourmalines, which we have in our imperial China in the Qinglong era and before, the carvings using tourmalines from all regions, including the jadeite that came into China since the Ming era or even earlier, were all from Burma, Myanmar today. And also, for my own interest, always curious about stones, 1973, I already visited Antigua in Guatemala, where I have seen the jadeites coming out from Guatemala. And more in the last 30, 40 years, I have bought beautiful light blue, good jadeite colors, not from Guatemala, but from the outskirts south of Cancun in the region of Campeche. Because my 5 languages, because my interest in cultures, between the psychological study and the cultural anthropological observations, I have guided many people to have made purchases in the area south of Cancun, south of Campeche. And during the time of the Spanish engagement, be that Cortes and the Spanish Empire in the region, the Indian gave the Spanish gold. But what they treasured the most are the statues, the mask of the carved in jade. So it was very interesting from the region, from Cancun going down to Campeche to the border of Guatemala, with all the native pyramids, the demand of the goods, the supply of the goods. And today we can be totally comfortable by buying from a vendor or sales team, salesperson, to know what the origin, what they are. In my 48 years, my early part to be in China when they're first opening up in the 80, 81, 82, I have bought aquamarine carvings that weighs about 500 grams for less than $1,000 in the China Arts and Craft branch in Shanghai, which I had triple or quadruple my price just by weighing for the stone. In the same way of the bicolor, tricolor tourmalines carved out early on in the Qing Dynasty, but maybe consolidated. I'm not sure about confiscation, with all the material showing in the Canton Fair. And I have made tremendous amount of purchases. Why the vendors and the sales were not so knowledgeable about the stones and products. But all in all these years of experiences and engagements with the government, with the China Arts and Craft branch in Hong Kong, where I have spent $350,000 in 1979. I was a youngster. I was a very young man by showing that kind of money, opening up our joint venture business with Robert Burney from the Chicago Burney Brothers Bakery. Upon his retirement, his interest in stones, we opened another business right on Worth Avenue in Palm Beach. So, but because of that engagement, I have reached from the Hong Kong China Arts and Craft branch to Shanghai, eventually to Tianjin, to Beijing, and back to Guangzhou. So in that exchange, along with the work that I have done in Brazil with the Banco de Boa Vista, offering the Chinese to buy quantity of agates, including a $2 million credit line, where I will have a direct 3% for all their purchases. So business arrangement had come to me because the engagement, I know about Brazil and I know about China. Unfortunately, Tiananmen Square had put a dampen that part of the trade and relationship. So going back on the Gemmfile board here, the GGMBA, as I said before, is already set up in WhatsApp. And predominantly the Brazilian traders with some of the Pakistanis, some of the Indians, and some of the ethnic Afghan operating out of Bangkok, Thailand, or in Peshawar. What is coming up next? That I'm not sure that I will using it as a jam chat, but I'm already positioning the gem gemfiles.ai insofar to give all the detail access. We used to use Wikipedia. If you want to type in a stone, the original mineral, where they're from. Today, using the AI, it can be function much richer, much more detailed, and guide you to your needs. If you shape your story, if you take your picture, put it on like the way I'm using Claude, they will give you a reading plus your own writing, more detail, more comprehensive. In so many words, we can no longer be playing any kind of funny games to anyone, because the AI will open the past history, even more forensics, to give you a better reading about past history and how the past global politics have been played. So what I have in the system here, I will add more to the service of the Gemmfiles. But all in all, just want to give you people overview. Again, in the gray and beige area, this is the Gemmfile we started 10 years ago, but it's still pretty much up to date. This part of it is about me, about my wife, and how we get our business going in all these years. This 4 T's for me is a very simple, very basic. Nobody had taught us operation principles and values, and I believe this has been worked in all my life, from my counseling career to the business in gems. And I also admit it's a very intriguing, and the gemstones oftentimes very dangerous because the uncertainty. How many times we have bought blue topaz as aquamarine? How many times we have bought a double, a white beryl top, white beryl bottom of the cut, but in the mirror is the aquamarine, the blue beryl. And how many emeralds people are still fighting over is oil treatment and color induced, color enhancing, in ruby and sapphires. But I find the 4 T's are very simple: total integrity, total transparency, total efficiency, and total accountability. I think that we eventually can be, it's no longer the preaching of integrity. Either you have it or you don't have it. But with the open AI coming in, there will be not too much room for the people who want to play the sleazy game and try to cheat and lie and embezzle somebody. But like all industry, where good guys, bad guys, a general history. I think this is important, because in the way how we have started our business since 1977, and the turning point at 2000 at 1991. That is the impact point of the computer technology and the information technology that impacted us. I have in 1991, I have decided the everyday transaction of the business we do is no longer in existence. But I was fortunate enough, by the aggressiveness since 1977 until 1990, I have made tremendous amount of earning, starting with a few stones, starting basic cost from $1 to 0.20 per carat. This were all the major errors made by the other people. Not error, they overlooked, because they look at a perfect example about the story about blue topaz. The 4 colors: the white, the sky blue, and then the London blue, and then there's a color called Swiss blue. Regardless, in between is how bright the color, all under 3 forms of treatment: the linear accelerator, the nuclear reactor, and then before that there's a cobalt treatment. When most the stones I have purchased is the rejected the stone of topaz from Brazilian gem cutters, went to Sao Paulo, went to Embarrage, treat the stones, only 10, 20, 30% come up with color. Color's not so bright, but it's blue, good enough. But then if you take it those stones into the linear accelerator, all the stone will brighten. It just so happened for over 3.5 years, I took all the rejected topaz from Sao Paulo, purchasing them for less than 20 cents per carat. Sometimes I get it for 5 cents or 10 cents and take the entire bag, bring it back to the US, ship to San Diego to retreat. I get over 60% of the super colors, and the rest are still decent enough for topaz. And this is part of the trade secret, which where I have learned, acquired, nobody have taught me. But when I started my business, I keep all my amethyst at $1 per carat, and my maximum margins between 3 to 5. So I bought back up to New York. Everybody knows everybody. Richard Greenwood was one of the major gem houses in 48. And then I traveled back to Los Angeles, San Francisco, or back home to Chicago. If I don't get my price, I flew to Hong Kong. Later on, from Hong Kong to Thailand. That was after 1983, when the Chinese in Hong Kong didn't know diddly about semi-precious stones. And so in this industry, in the last 48 years, I feel pretty comfortable. I feel pretty proud that I have contributed to the enrichment and enhancement of this industry. Now you have to talk about Hong Kong. We talk about all the cutting factories inside my first cutting place in Punyu. But before that, I was having my gem cutting located in Mesai, northwest of Bangkok. There'll be another story to tell. And here comes, I showed the rutilated quartz is because in the era after the amethyst and blue topaz, or in between of the boom of the two color I started with, the other stone that come into play is the rutilated quartz coming out from north of Tefilotoni, near the area called Vitória da Conquista, in the northeast of the state of Minas Gerais, coming into Bahia. And this is one pair of beautiful carved, high quality pink tourmalines being done in China. And the workmanship at that particular time and point, I've been buying my carved animals from Ito Oberstein, near the Wurzbach in Germany, to put into my stores in Colorado and also in Palm Beach. But also all this have changed, and the carving now is coming from everywhere because the Germans are very devoted, very dedicated. They have the tools. They have 3 generations doing that. But today's Chinese carving is above and beyond the ordinary. I just show this picture of the amethyst because I started with amethyst, starting again at the $1 per carat for my own production. I got I made good money when I was engaged. One of my first garimpeiros, Fifi, Araudo Nunes, when he bought in the amethyst from the Amazon region in Pará state, Macabá was the stone was a compatible as good as the German, predominantly German purchasing and processing the amethyst inside Bahia called Brejinha. It's a complete name I will eventually put on. And from the Minas, Amazon, Bahia of the amethyst, I venture on to survey within the cultural sphere of amethyst. It brought me all the way down the Rio Grande do Sul to the 2 towns, Soledade and Lajeado, where they process many of the juices you see. Is one part of the product. It was not that prominent, but the products go from Iraí, another region nearby Iguaçu Falls in the state of Paraná and Santa Catarina. So the region of the amethyst, but they have a more unique culture influenced by the Germans. The rough material were totally hammered, have a very small wedge of the hammer, because when they hammer it, the cutter can see the entire stone with a clear image. What we do not do or have not been done in the Minas, even though we produce also a good quantity of amethyst called north of the Rio Grande do Sul, but south of the country, almost in the middle, if you want dividing Bahia and Minas into that zone. So the culture and the understanding and the grasp of the amethyst have taken me from Minas Gerais to Rio Grande do Sul, Soledade, Lajeado, and eventually 7 hour drive southwest into Uruguay, Artigas. In fact, I branded the amethyst from Uruguay, which I had bought in quantity and processing cutting in Hong Kong by way of China, just so they can cut the smaller stones suitable to the manufacturers in US and Europe. And I actually labeled the brand called Imperial Uruguayana because that color was so rich that the German have been selling them as called Siberia. I guess one of the earliest amethysts coming up from Siberia, Russia. But in the history today, this kind of the big drusas are becoming more of in demand, and because of this demand, they diminish the supply of the my stones that we used to facet, because most of our facet stone are coming up from this kind of a big cathedral druses. We had to hammer it out and then process it. So this is all part of the venture about the Carimbero, the gem explorer, but it suits to the story building up what I have started with Gemmfiles in 1991. Yes, I have no qualm anymore because the way I see these 8+ platform, the more platforms, is becoming a to service in the good segment of the industry. If talk about 400 billion in 5-6 years ago, today we are in the area close to 600 billion and even more. But most importantly, there's two other industry we have not combined, such as the GGMBA, because GGMBA meaning Global Gemstones and Minerals Business Alliances. That means today we're talking about the quantity export out of granite or quartzite, high quality granite from the construction, from the high grade building in the Middle East, in now Indonesia and Egypt with Saudi Arabia. So, but yet there's another segment of the antique jewelry. So give and take. We can take this $400 billion gas estimates in 5 years ago, today about 600 billion. But the most important thing is that when people become a member of the trade, yes, one of the earning platform is the gem board. Whatever the amount, we can escalate from 10, 20, 30% a year to jump into 3 years to 100%, maybe more. 1 to 3%, that's enough revenue to support the Gemmfile system. I'm very open in this matter. And this is part of the document showing what I have researched. And today, using AI, you can get many more reports with a much more concise statement. What I said in Gempedia is basically a total data about gemstones. I want to show what we have started, and today we can do gempedia.ai. Then you will have all the stones information you can gather. But furthermore, you can also using the past data of the GemDAX to authenticate what have been bought, who has been sold. Those personal data may not need to be attached. They can link to it. But on the other hand, you will have a global data and you can have a transactional data, which information, AI, IT is going to deliver us a lot more than we can ask for. So I'm going back routing again and talk about the system. And I have not been the kind of person to well versed about investment and about the taking Gemmfile today into Hong Kong, but I have researched from DeepSeek with other ventures that I have started and to articulate the basic the cost of the accounting firms and the basic setup into Hong Kong and take the company public, and by selling shares or by early investors, that can be less than $500,000, which is no big deal. But what I what I feel the importance to have the system now in place, I was not wrong to have waited since 1991 to today. Yes, there have been many laughters, many people joking, Paul, you're a smart man. How come you are not getting what you had? How come you're not succeeding with other competitors that came behind you? Well, that is because in 1991, I have already settled in my mind the way we do business to hustle you in a gem fair like Tucson, which I did 20 years. And also, there's so many other happening within the gem trade that my colleagues in the gem trade never had such opportunity. Case in point, I'm proud of the fact that what this industry has given me, the base, including the existence of China West, which in 2 years will be completing our 50th years. In the meantime, we have developed a system called LG Collection. We can make up all the lakes, all the islands, all the mountains, starting with Lake Geneva, the Lake Charms alone, we can develop 30 designs in silver. Now the LG collections, we are capable to design 28 designs for every single lake, every single mountain. And we have even designed rings by the depth of the topography of the river. People want a ring representing Manaus. We just take the topography into the depth and the layers of the depth of the riverbank and cut off and cast them into a ring. My daughter in the Portland area, Cannon Beach, the haystack, I can build the entire shape of the state of Wisconsin with a ballerina. Many young girls, my daughter, my granddaughter, they all dance. And then add the little stone for the birthstone. So there are hundreds and thousands opportunities. And I just want to clear one point. So all my gemstone partners, friends, associates who share with me, who enjoy with me, who cherish our friendship, or even some of those who make a little laughter about I did not make the maximum gains in all these years. Unbeknown to me, in my last 48 years, one of my greatest earnings, because the business never came into my business, but it was generated from the China West store, and generated from my global travel, where we have done a lot of our sales in a very quiet demeanor by consignments. I can mention names: Sears and Roebuck, Montgomery Wards. We supply to their jewelry manufacturing with stones by them picking up our gems. Carson Peary Scott. I have stocked 17 ships by way of the introduction of the shopper image, who was one of the earliest non-jewelry people using catalogs to sell gemstones on the flights. We supply to them, to their buying offices in Arkansas, and because of the good services were recommended into the trade to the cruise ships, starting with 2 or 3 ships They don't buy, they just consign. But then eventually we get 17 ships. That weekly we send it to the ships. And every week when they sell, they send us the document back and giving us along with a check and payment. And more than that, as I said, when you're into the business, there are other situations and events. And never in my life, in what I have done, and which I'm happy to review to most people, I have picked up a 25 million backdating Russian debt owned by the Chinese. And by way of the language engagement to the diplomatic corps in Brazil, in Spain, with a Spanish-speaking lady and her uncle, Leo, I have helped them to convert it, this $25 million in the goods of the luxury items engaged involving with all the Chinese arts and craft branch. And then I pick up a very humble between 5 to 7%. So I'm not going to talk about what business we can get involved and why I do not have to be focused solely onto the color stones. The opportunities I have by offering mines from Mozambique, Paraíba, tourmalines. I have joint ventures offered by the Roman Catholic Order who own their mines operations with the precious topaz nearby Ouro Preto. I have also the opportunity to be the first dollar doreiro in Minas Gerais, in Valadares, and Teoflotone, because maybe my sense of value, I rejected the practice of usury. How much money you can make? Try 5, 7, 10, 20% a month because the speculative nature of the colored gemstones. But the story goes on. The Gemmfiles system today can be created with less than $500,000 as an initial capital. And the software is already 80% ready. Credit or debit, maybe in less than $2 million, Gemmfiles can become a reality. What is interesting with the file system, with the data system, with the cloud holding, and with AI, we can conduct a very, very intelligent business with our gemstones, jewelry, gold to be put into all free zones around the world. And I myself, in particular, going back to my cultural and anthropological interest with the natives, I can work with the Cintas Largas in Rondonia, or even the Yanomamis up north by Venezuela. We have the gold mining system, which is the Russian pattern, totally clean mining system. We can empower the natives in Brazil to participate in the global economy. And I just want to fine-tuning this point about the global economy. In my previous tape, I was a little bit upsetting. I'm still research of the success of the Templar Knights of Crusades. By the same system they developed, they're very self-reliant, dependent, because 50% of the Templar Knights protecting the pilgrims. Let's don't get into the racial side of the story, the conflict between Muslim, Jewish people, and the Templar Knights, the Roman Catholic Order. But their system had given, even from into Italy, other than Medici, the banking system without abuse. And the same system of the Templar Knights got squeezed out by the French king because the French king was tremendously amount indebted, borrowing money from the Templar Knights. When they left Europe, disbanded at the time of three popes, it's a chaos time in Rome and with a pope in Avignon in France, the Templar Knights had all gone into the system to help Portugal with their reconquista, the reconquering of from the Moors, and also the Templar Knights. The Red Cross was interfaced with the Orden de Cristo, or the Order of Christ, the White Cross, under the sails of all the Portuguese naval expeditions. The discipline, the secrecy, the code of conduct of the Portuguese and their reconquering the Moorish part, the southern part of Portugal, all the way with the Prince Henry's navigation school in Sagres. The Portuguese history is a tremendous story about how systematically they have sailed along the coast of West Africa. And Prince Henry the Navigator had taken Ceuta, which is the northwestmost point of today Morocco. And that's how they started their navigation, by first taking Madeira, Azores, then in Africa, in the Cape of Good Hope. Very methodically, they had already, before they got to Brazil, they already had taken Guinea, the country named Cameroon, coming from Portuguese Camarão, or Camarones in Spanish. And then they turned the Cape by another explorer, Bartolomeu Dias, which has sent Vasco da Gama to India and then eventually to Japan. And the same system of the Portuguese development of the oceanic voyages is still a discipline coming from the Knights Templars. Last but not least were the Jesuits. Even Ignacio Loyola Abasc had opened up the Company of Jesus. May or may not have anything to do with the Templars. And by his emulation, maybe consciously or subconsciously, and by him holding their pledge solely to the Pope. For those of you who have not watched Mission, where Robert De Niro, Jeremy Irons had showed how successful the Jesuits and how much they have done to protect the local indigenous culture and language. Instead of the evangelization, they're starting out to understand the empathy of the culture. As a matter of fact, 2008, I was in the middle of the Amazons with the local parish, the bishop, ethnic Chinese Bishop Song, S-O-N-G, like me, born in Shanghai, raised in Hong Kong, speak Cantonese, Shanghai, Mandarin. And he was the first bishop in Brazil called the Bishop of the Indus, the Indians, where I have received one of the weekend, I took a retreat, 2008, I was 60 years old. I decided, what could have happened if I would have joined a religious order? In that particular week, the mandate coming from Rome is to encourage all the catechists, all the religious practitioners to foster enculturation, E-N-C-U-L-T-U-R-E-S, enculturação, and then inculturação, I-N, meaning enculturation is to teach, fostering cultures. Inculturação is a reflective way to guide the natives to learn about their past and their ancestry and the many cultural riches among the 35 ethnic Indians. I went there because it was supposedly one of the lost language called Ningatu, Língua Geral, spoken in Sao Paulo in the region of São Vicente when the Portuguese first got there. And the Ninkatu language was a language cultivated, formatted by the priest named José Anchieta, who happens to be also the cousin of Ignacio Loyola from Spain. There's so many cultural rich, and that's in what I do about the gem trade. I'm using the gem trade to allow me the global travel and the global exploration that I have done in Brazil, in the peripherals of Brazil, and to know the Jesuits were the first one who ever cultivated a language, a national language of Paraguay, besides Spanish, is Guarani. And I hope there will be a spoken, written language of Tupi, which coming up in bits and pieces. This is how I want to end this Gemmfiles clarification on a cultural note. And I want you, for those who is in Hong Kong, who can see what I said about Hong Kong Trade Council in need of investment and groups to come into Hong Kong to take the company public, they can do all their work. I have the content, and I have the ingredient, and I have the infrastructure just to tie it up to the work in AI in the modern time. And I thank you for this presentation. And I will do the two other presentation, both in Cantonese Chinese for now. I will try to do the Mandarin, and then I will do one in Portuguese and maybe Spanish. Thank you.